There's a revolutionary new way now of not only just planting trees, but creating these tiny, dense, thriving forests. This tiny forest behind me here grows 10 times faster, 30 times denser, and will be 100 times more biodiverse than conventional ways of planting trees. I've come to Kent where they have done a really interesting planting trial where they've used this interesting new method versus conventional planting, and the comparison really is night and day. The taller, denser, healthier looking trees here on my right have been planted using the Japanese method Miyawaki. In researching this video, I realised that these mini forests are popping up all over Britain, being planted in this way. This one's in a park which is surrounded by housing. Sometimes they're in the centre of our cities. This one right here is only 3.5 years old. So these much smaller ones here are 3.5 years old, and these ones over here were planted at the same time, also 3.5 years old. The Miyawaki method is named after its creator, Akira Miyawaki, a Japanese botanist that grew deeply interested in phytosociology. This is all about how plants work together, their structure, composition, and interrelationships. Applying this understanding to the ancient forests of Japan, he observed 4 distinct layers of this climax forest community. At the very top, you have the much taller canopy trees. Below them, you have the secondary layer of trees. Below them, you have smaller shrubs and smaller trees. And then you have the ground layer, which is made up of flowers and lower lying plants. He then incorporated the theory of PNV, potential natural vegetation. This is just the idea, the understanding of what plants would naturally occur if humans weren't there, if we didn't interfere with it. So native plants. He took this and the idea of forest structure, and he went to a trial plot and he began planting trees. And he also planted them really tightly together to try and mimic what would naturally happen when a forest was regenerating. And straight away he knew he was onto something, and the trees, they just took off. And now all over the world, it doesn't matter whether if you're here in the UK or if you're in Japan or if you're in India, anywhere, the Miyawaki method works, and it can create a self-sustaining forest in as little as 3 years. I mean, these are just 3 years old, and look at it. It's a mini forest complete with everything you need. So in order to understand why these forests can grow much more quickly and be so much better for wildlife, we need to understand how exactly they're created. But first, I want to tell you about a really impressive organisation, Planet Wild. It's a community-driven rewilding organisation based in Berlin that are restoring nature on a global scale. Whether if it's returning missing species like the lynx to Germany's forests, revolutionising blue whale research deploying cameras with drones, or returning life to the dead space around ugly man-made power lines. And every month there is a new rewilding mission which they document over on their YouTube channel, which you might have seen already, but I'll link it in the description so you can check it out. It'll be this video about killing trees to return an ancient forest in Scotland. I think you'll really like it. Anyone can be a part of this and fund rewilding projects all around the world. And the best part is that you get to see what you're impacting on a monthly basis through videos and text reports. There's also a great app too, which you can download if you want to keep up to speed with everything which is happening. And you really don't have to give that much in order to start helping nature. Just give what you can, big or small, because it all adds up, it all counts. So here's the deal for you. If you're one of the first 200 people to sign up, you'll get your first month for free. So you can start helping nature right now, and it won't cost you anything. I'll leave a link to this offer in the description of the video, and say in the future, if you didn't want to support Planet Wild anymore, you can cancel any time. When we come together, we will restore nature faster, and that's exactly why I support Planet Wild, because that's what they offer. We need to be restoring nature as much as we can and as fast as we can. So here in Kent, we have a brilliant project set up by the Tree Council which showcases the difference between the Miyawaki method and the more conventional way of planting trees. Now, in general, when planting the Miyawaki method, it's normally on quite a small scale, normally about the size of a tennis court, but these can be as little as 3 by 4 meters. So before any trees are planted, the Miyawaki method is all about understanding the soil. In conventional tree planting, very little consideration is given to the type of soil, and there's very little preparation. So actually here for this project, I read that all of the soil here was turned up and turned over, because this is a park. It's probably had a lot of footfall in the park, and it's probably heavily compacted. It's also key to understand what kind of soil type that you have, because you might have to add retainers, or you might have to add a more porous material to help regulate the water. And then into the soil you add organic fertilizers and also suitable mycorrhizal basal fungi. So all of that is going into the base of this mini forest. Then comes selecting the species. This is where P&V comes in, potential natural vegetation. There's many records to inform you on this, there's a lot of research on this, and essentially you just want to have a huge diversity of native species going in, and also for all of the different structures. And that's the key here, is that you're planting a forest with all of those structures at once. In conventional planting, this just doesn't happen. Very often it's just a single species or a single type of tree that goes in. And then comes the arrangement of the planting. The key thing in the Miyawaki method is that your planting density is much higher, something like 3 to 5 species per square kilometre, and in the conventional method it's typically just one species, one plant per square kilometre. And the other key thing to consider when arranging your planting is that you're not grouping the different layers together. So you don't just have one spot where you've got all of the top canopy species and then another spot where you've got all of the lower ground species. It's key to have a nice flow of all of these species and these layers everywhere throughout the planting area. But it's this density of planting which ensures that the trees grow so much quicker. Because they're so much closer together, there's greater competition for light and they all shoot up in one go. And because of the great diversity of species and all the different layers, what you get really quickly is this really dense habitat, which is just perfect for such a wide range of different species. Interestingly, between the two plots, this project has found that the Miyawaki method actually has a 99% survival rate, and the plants and the trees planted in this one actually has a 75% survival rate. And they've also found that the Miyawaki plot holds twice as much wildlife, and that it also holds its leaves for a lot longer into the autumn, so it's much healthier. And also, this is actually much cheaper than that. Yes, it's more materials and more time up front, but because of the higher survival rate, it actually saves money. And I don't know about you, but aesthetically, it just looks so much nicer. It just looks way more interesting. There's something about a really dense thicket of just plants that's just so much more inviting. I want to go crawling through there. I won't. But the other cool thing about this being so dense is it's actually stopped, mindless vandalism. What they've observed over in this plot is that a few of the trees have actually been snapped off. It's just much easier to get in there and snap them, whereas you're not really going to be getting in through that. But the other really cool thing about this method is that Akira Miyawaki, from the start, threaded into this method that the community is integral to the success of this. And it's true, it does take a little bit of time at the start to prepare the soil and plant the trees. But I think, this element of involving the community is as revolutionary as the success and the growth rate of these trees. And here in the UK, when it comes to nature restoration, we have a pretty unique set of challenges. We're a relatively small island nation that's densely populated, we're pretty well fragmented. When nature restoration methods like this pop up that can not only bring the community together, but also, rapidly create a mini forest, I think that's really special because it enables people to have an experience and therefore a connection to nature, and connection and understanding is exactly what the natural world needs right now. Whether if it's a tiny Miyawaki forest or if it's one of the many projects from Planet Wild, we need to come together and restore nature as fast as we can. So please do consider signing up for a Planet Wild subscription. And remember that offer, if you're one of the first 200 people to sign up, you'll get the first month for free. Head to the description of the video where you can use the code Curious7, or you can simply use the QR code which is on the screen now to sign up. As always, thank you so much for watching the video and supporting the channel. Leave curious.